Today, we are going to have a little flexibility in our schedule. It was supposed to be table discussion, and we'll do that. But we also know this conference is about education, information, and sharing. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you now John Cain, who's in charge of the Evangelical Life Ministries. And then on his card, there's a big microphone. So I'll let that be said, and here's John.
If you want to be successful, get out of the office. That's what my vicarage supervisor told me some 30 years ago. He said, if you stay in your little brick building at the corner of Main and Vine, only your congregation will know you. But if you get out and mix, that's when you're going to see things happen. The Spirit will work with that. Like, okay. So I've waited for opportunities. I've looked for opportunities. Well, about 12 years ago, a fellow that I had met here on campus relocated to Houston, where I was serving. David Schultz was the station manager just down the road here at KFUO when Dale Meyer was the Lutheran Hour speaker during those years when I was attending seminary here. And I had another friend who'd been in the radio business, a fellow classmate, and so I'd met these guys. And so when Schultz came to Houston in his retirement, he started looking around for a church where he could kind of replicate some of what he had started. President Al Berry had asked him to find content, to do something to update Lutheran Hour Ministries radio programming. And so that was kind of the genesis of Issues, etc., a long time ago, the original version of it. So coming to Houston, he started looking at major Christian radio stations, and eventually we got a break. We got radio airtime, and we've been on the air probably 12 years or so in Houston, estimated years ago at maybe 40,000 listeners, also estimated at probably greater than 40% unchurched to dechurched. So we've had an opportunity to cast a lot of seed and to interview lots and lots of people. So if anybody's interested, that's internet radio also. It's not just Houston, plus podcasting, kkht.com every Sunday night at 7 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. Greg Seltz, for many years, has had our second programming. We've worked with Greg. We've had lots of different people on the air with us. I've interviewed most of the district presidents at one time or another, university presidents, college presidents, lots of our professors. And really, when you consider the cost of doing this, this is a very cheap way of reaching out to people who don't know who or what Lutheranism is. So it's a great way of opening our doors. Another thing we've done is to talk to people who are not LCMS. Don't let that get out. We talk to people who are doing interesting things with ministry because maybe we could, use the idea. And so Schultz and I heard about some things that were happening in Louisiana and in Texas with prison education. So we took our Zoom H4n digital recorder in there and we started interviewing inmates and professors. So both of these states have Bachelor of Ministry degree programs for lifers. So guys who will never get out then are trained to do ministry work in the pen. So the guys that will never get out train the guys who will. There is at least one LCMS guy who's gone through the program in Texas, and he is catechizing inmates and baptizing inmates. There are over 200 graduates spread across Texas in more than 35 different prisons in Texas. They go out in at least teams of 2, and they're usually sent. They're always sent in a place where the warden requests them. They're usually sent to places that have the most gang problems. And they work to change the culture from the inside out. And so talking to those people, It's a much longer story. If you had an hour, I'd tell you how it got into the state of Texas, and it's now the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the Dean of the Senate, John Whitmire, who was just elected as the mayor of Houston. Those guys are, one's a Democrat and the other's a Tea Party Republican. They were forced to serve on the same committee in criminal justice for the Texas Senate, and as a result of it, they are best friends. I mean, arm around the neck, best friends. Their families celebrate Christmas together. And this whole thing has just blossomed in Texas so that the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the legislature is all in on supporting education of inmates to become, we would call them commissioned ministers, but really they are on 24/7. They get called in the middle of the night if someone's on death watch, on death row. They lead worship. They do Bible studies, they do literacy, they do just all kinds of things. And I mentioned to some of you about the Baylor University's Institute of Society and Religion. So if you look at Baylor ISR, they have a number of studies. There was $1 million study looking at these educational facilities at Angola Prison in Louisiana and at Darrington Memorial in south of Houston. And inmate on inmate violence has dropped like 80%. They haven't had an attack on a prison employee, a serious attack for decades since in places where this has been running. So many other states are asking for this. Joe Gibbs Racing, if you've ever heard of Rick Gibbs, he heard about it and he has paid for a school to come in and do it for North Carolina. Wisconsin heard about it. In fact, we were at Angola Prison when the phone call came in from a state rep. And so the guys there in Angola asked us around the table who were visiting, anybody know anybody in Wisconsin? I said, I just talked to Pat Ferry on the radio. Pat Ferry was the president of Concordia, Wisconsin. So in the committee, looking at who would be the school that would run a satellite accredited school inside the prison, it came down to Concordia, Wisconsin, and Trinity University of, I think it's Evanston, Illinois. And the decision went with Trinity. So just so you know, our Concordias would be a great fit. Did you ever hear about that? Did you know that Concordia, Wisconsin was in the running to run for the state of Wisconsin a Bachelor of Ministry program? You see? Yeah. Synod doesn't always share this information with you. Yeah. So I think we need to work through SID or somebody to be the clearinghouse for a lot of our information. But so really, I got into this prison stuff by the back door, of all things, through radio. And so it's great. We go in, we talk to the students, we go in and talk to the professors. We interview them. We get approval, obviously, from the wardens to publicize this, to put it on the air, and to show people what is possible when the Spirit of God is working. And I will tell you, the Spirit of God is working. I am absolutely convinced this is the #1 evangelic outburst or explosion in America today, because not only is the culture in the prisons being changed in many places, obviously not in the places where there are incorrigibles. There are always going to be some who are perhaps beyond our help. But, not only are they, the prisons being changed, but the prisoners are reaching out to their families. And it's amazing the things that are happening both inside and outside, where this evangelism is starting with prisoners and changing their families. So lots of things happening there. I mentioned kkht.com is the radio station. It's run by Southern Baptists as part of Salem Broadcasting, they're a national consortium, but we have every Sunday night for our radio programs. Heart of Texas Foundation, HOTF, College of Ministry, so HOTFCOM.org. If you want to connect maybe someone in your state with someone who's got the basic business plan on how to do this education. Okay.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. We're going to have you up later for Q&A.
And before you know it, your penitentiary bound. Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine a little light on me.